Okay, welcome again to the art therapy sessions for the Disability Network of Wayne County, Detroit. I am Mook Hodge, and this is our second session. We will be completing a repoussé. Yes, that's a French word, repoussé, and it will be in aluminum. Last week we created a repoussé, but it was in brass. So this one is going to be in aluminum, and I'm so glad that you can join us today. Also, I want to let you know that the aluminum repoussé is going to be a tad easier. If you tried the one in brass, it may have been a bit challenging, but this one is going to be a breeze. Just watch, you'll see. So what we have in front of us is a sample of a repoussé for those joining us for the first time. And this particular repoussé is actually in copper. And the black areas that you see in the repoussé was paint, but we modified the project a little bit and we used black marker last week, and that's what we're going to use for this week too. It's a lot cleaner, no mess, no paint. You don't have to worry about your clothes. But I just wanted to point that out. But this is one that was done in copper. This is not aluminum, but this is actually my framed sample. And that's why I keep bringing it out, so you all can see how good it looks framed. I encourage all of you to get yours framed. And when you do get yours framed, here's some good places to go. Well, what I mean is when you're ready to get yours framed, some good places to go to get them framed might be somewhere like Eric's I've Been Framed, Michael sells frames, and the like. And again, I'm Mook Hodge, and this is Activating the Artist. Also, you can go to activatingtheartist.com and check out other classes that you might be interested in. That's activatingtheartist.com, all lower caps. Remember that, all low caps, no uppercase caps. Activatingtheartist.com. So check that out, and I update that website frequently with new classes and new offerings that we have. A lot of them are online, but we also have a wide range of in-person offerings, and that's why I want you to check it out, and it's very, very affordable. So anyhow, back to the repoussé in aluminum. So I'm going to just go ahead and put this one to the side. So all of our Disability Network recipients have received a wonderful Disability Network art therapy bag. Hopefully you can see it here. I'll try to put it in the camera a little bit. But you saw me holding that up. So yes, hopefully you all received that as a consumer with the Disability Network. If you sign up for this class, then you probably have one. So what I want you to do, take out first thing is your file folder, okay? So this little guy right here, take out your file folder and you're gonna put that on your workstation. It should say art therapy at the top. I got some new angles, y'all, so hopefully we'll be able to see some of the words and things. It says art therapy. And inside your folder, you're going to have metal. The metal on top is the aluminum. It kind of looks like silver. It's very reflective, very shiny. It almost looks like a mirror even, but it's not a mirror. If it had a high polish, it'd be mirror-like, or it'd be more mirror-like, but it doesn't. So we're gonna put this off to the side. We are gonna be working with that. Just like last week, I know you're like, why did I get two of these? Well, one of them is your practice piece and the other one will be your actual piece. Who knows? You might get lucky. Maybe your practice looks awesome and you decide to frame that too. So yeah, that's up to you. But back to our therapy folder, you will find two pieces of copper in here. Let's put that to the back because we're going to work in copper next week, okay? And I have these classes designed back to back like this on purpose so that you'll get better. Maybe the one you did in brass, just, you know, it wasn't your best work, probably for most of you, because it was your first time doing a repoussé, I assume. So that's why I'm giving you the chance to do yet another repoussé in a different type of metal. Some metals agree with other people, with different people more so than other metals. Like for instance, someone that's got very strong muscular hands or muscular arms might do very well in brass. And someone who's going to use a lot of pressure might do very well in brass and maybe not so well in aluminum. Because remember, we can't try to go through to the back of the metal. We can't put too much pressure on it or it'll pierce through the metal is what I'm trying to say. So too much pressure could be bad for aluminum, but it could be good for someone else that has maybe less developed hand and arm muscles and just wants to kind of take it easy on the metal. And the aluminum is very receptive to the slightest touch, really, and just a little bit of pressure. It doesn't require as much pressure as the brass does. You'll find that when we get to copper, the copper is somewhere in between. Like it's not as much pressure as the brass, and it's not the least amount of pressure like the aluminum is. Like the aluminum doesn't require a lot of pressure at all, but the copper is somewhere in between. Okay, so you'll find it as we get to the next project. So I want you to take out your folder and your lesson plan. This is our lesson plan on top, this blue thing in my hand. Go ahead and flip the page. Hopefully you completed your activity last week and you dated it. I have my date up here plus my name. And I signed these at the bottom. Go ahead and date it at the bottom. You can use your marker or ink pen, a pencil, whatever you can find for that day that you completed it. For me, it was the same day that I started it. Okay, so we're going to the next page. We're on to aluminum. What I want you to do, these lesson plans double as completion certificates. Just a cool way to save paper. So go ahead and write your name at the top of write your name at the top and put the date on here. All right, put the date at the top too. Cap your marker, very important step. You don't want that marker to dry out because then you have to replace it. All right, so I want us to go ahead and just get started reading the lesson plan. It says at the top, it's talking about how aluminum is different from brass. It says aluminum is a silver white metallic metal. Oh, a silver white metallic chemical element. Sorry about that. With atomic number 13. So it's in the chart of elements, from a chemistry perspective, but that's a whole other thing with the science. It has good electrical and thermal conductivity, high reflectivity. Remember I was telling about the mirror effect, and resistance to oxidation, and it's often used before and now. So just something you can know how aluminum is different from brass from a technical aspect, other than the obvious. It's a different color, it's a different weight. I mean, different amount of pressure, lighter. All right, our goal today is I can create metal artwork using the repoussé method, which means to push forward. So our goal is the same as last week's goal, but we're gonna get better. That's essentially our goal, is to get better. But then again, some people, this still might be their first day. Maybe they didn't do the one in aluminum, so they just want to create something in metal. And so that is essentially our goal. But if you already started last week and you did one in brass, you want to get better. So you can add better to your goal. So remember, repoussé is a French word, and it just means to push forward. Repoussé is a method of decorating metals in which parts of the design are raised in relief from the back or the inside of the article by means of pressure created by various metal tooling instruments. Definition and detail can then be added from the front or the back. So yes, we will be working on both sides of this metal. It's two-sided. Both sides look exactly the same. And I've put tape around the edges of your metal as a safety precaution. Very reflective. Safety precaution. So do not remove them. It's not that it's razor sharp, but it is sharp. I would hate to see anyone get a, that little, those little cuts, those little paper cuts. Metal cuts aren't fun. Paper cuts aren't fun either, but metal cuts aren't fun. All right, back to the definition of repoussé. Definition and detail can then be added from the front or the back. The name repoussé is derived from the French word pousser, to push for. The technique is ancient and has been used extensively in Europe. Okay, so the first step in our lesson plan is step 1, and that is to gather all needed supplies. So hopefully you have your bag with you, hopefully over here to the left. And I want you to make sure you have your bag with you. Hopefully last session you put everything that you had in it back, or maybe this is your first time getting the bag or the first time opening the bag. So all the supplies should already be in here. But the second step, or the second part of step 1, is to move this file folder out the way and put out your padded surface. So my padded surface, I've decided to double up the surface. Last week, I just used an extra disability bag that I happen to have. If you don't have an extra disability bag, feel free to take all the contents out of your disability bag and use that because it is cushiony. It's fabric, it's cushiony. It's better, do not work on top of a tabletop. It must be a soft surface. A pillow, a pair of jeans, a hair wrap, a pillowcase, something soft. So what I added on top of here is some pillowcases to go on top to kind of cushion our metal. Now you want to take the metal that we had from a few minutes ago. Remember I was showing you both sides of the metal. You're going to put that on top. Okay, so we have even additional cushion, and this cushion is good for the aluminum project because remember the aluminum is very soft. It's light, it's soft, it's way more malleable. It needs just a little bit extra cushion, not so much like the brass. The brass was a very stiff metal, so it took way more energy and effort to make marks in the brass than it's going to take in the aluminum. You'll see what I'm talking about. I want to move this over just a little bit so you all can see it. Okay, that's better. And I have this is going to become my finished piece, the other piece of aluminum. So I'm going to put that off to the side so that it's not in the way. All right, our next step is to create actually a sample drawing of what the finished artwork is going to look like. Okay, so it's 2 ways we can do this. We can, let's get out our paper. So that means we're going to actually move this over to the side, but we have it set up and I wanted you to see how to set that up. But we're going to move that over to the side now because we're actually done with that part. And we're going to take back out our file folder because in the back of the file folder, you will find some white drawing paper. There it is, some just plain white drawing paper. Go ahead and take out 2 sheets for yourself. You never know, you might have a little accident and you need that second sheet. So let me get this in the frame so you all can see it real nicely. Okay, so here is your white drawing paper and we're going to trace this piece of metal. Remember I said to put it off to the side? We'll take it back. And we're going to trace it like about in the center of the page. We'll use the marker to do it. If you are concerned about maybe making a mistake, then feel free to use the pencil instead. But for the purposes of my at-home viewers being able to see what I'm doing, I'm definitely going to use a black marker. For your design, like I've been saying, keep it simple. If this is your second time doing a repoussé, then you go right ahead and maybe you can take a few risks. You know, you can do something a little bit more challenging, but for the most part, keep it simple. Because remember I was telling you last week, too much detail means more work for you. We want to keep this class under 2 hours, okay? So after you have the trace, let's put that over to the side. And this is where I tap into my creativity. I'm like, what kind of design do I want to come up with? Well, I've been encouraging everyone to do simple designs, lines and shapes. So I'm still encouraging you to do lines and shapes. So I'm thinking of some lines. Last time I did some very curvy lines. I did a heart in the past. If you saw the one that I framed, that one kind of looked like sailboats. It kind of gives you an idea of how you can make shapes into something. So I think this time I want to do something rather geometric. I'm feeling straight lines. So go ahead and just put your lines and shapes in. And like I say, because this is our second, and for some of you who've already done this before, this may even be your third or fourth repoussé, so we can be a little more risque. These lines on the side, that's just the perfectionist in me, trying to get my trace lines to be really, really straight. If it helps, hold your paper as you're drawing because it can start to move. So what I'm saying is you don't have to trace over the square a second time the way I'm doing. It's just, that's just how I roll. I like for my lines to be really neat. I don't like scraggly pieces coming off of them. You can't really help it, I'm sorry. That's just how I like it. Okay, so we got our lines here. And I think I'm going to break up some of these lines over here also. Remember that your initial drawing is a guide. Can you deviate from the guide? Yes, you can, and you probably will. You're going to probably modify the design in some ways. And it's all, that's what's really make it interesting to see how you deviated from your original design. It makes the whole art making process interesting to see what you planned and then what you came up with in the end. So I think I was talking about this last time, how we want to darken some of the areas of our design, and those darkened areas represent areas that we're going to push in on the metal. So we're going to be going that way on the metal, on the darkened areas. And on the back side of the metal, we'll be pushing out, up, I mean, not out, but up. I'm be pushing this way on the other sides of the metal. And remember, right now, the metal is two-sided. It doesn't have a front or a back. So up is down, left is, I mean, it's the same. It's a square. Left is right. So at some point in the design, you're going to come up with a front, a back, you know, a left, a right, a top, a bottom. But right now, it's just a piece of metal that looks exactly the same on both sides. So when I say up and push down and high and low and all of that, that is relative to which side of the metal you're working on. Because on the other side of the metal where you push down, that area is actually popping up, and vice versa, if that makes any sense. Okay, so we're going to darken in some of these triangles here. And like I say, the places that I darken them in, this tells me when I'm working on the metal that I'm going to push in with my tools. So it'll be a really weird looking design if I push in on all of these triangles. So I'm actually going to skip some of them. I'm going to do every other triangle. What'll happen is if I push in on all of these triangles, then I would just have one big black diamond shape. And that's kind of not the look I'm going for here. I want people to see this contrast, like this bounce, almost like a checkerboard, if that makes any sense. Okay. So go ahead and darken in these triangles with your marker or pencil. And if you put good energy and effort into your drawing, guess what? You can frame this too. And it could be a part of your exhibition, you know, if that's what you want. It could be framed side by side with your repoussé. That way the viewer can see, like we were just saying, what changes you made. How did you deviate from your original design? Okay, so like I said, we've got to finish darkening in these areas. And so now I have a checkerboard effect. So this is where it gets a little tricky. What in the world am I going to do with these shapes on the side? I think, again, since I said something about this checkerboard effect, I'm going to go ahead and darken in some of these areas too. And it will start to look checkerboard-like, but not with square checkerboards, but rather with triangular checkerboards. Okay, so we have a cool design that's simple. It's simple lines and shapes. And wasn't that cool how I just turned lines, regular lines, into shapes without that much effort? Okay, so I'm gonna put my marker and my paper to the side because since this is probably your first time working in aluminum, I want us to test out our tools again. Of course, we have to because this is a different metal. Even though we tested them out last week, we got to try them out on the aluminum and see what it do on the aluminum. Okay, so I'm putting my marker to the side. Inside your bag, you're gonna find many things. There's a poster board. We actually don't need that today. So we're gonna put that off to the side. There are some face masks. You might want to consider wearing these if you're in a group setting. It can be good for you. There is a bag that will have pencil, scissors, a marker. All of that was probably in a bag. Hopefully it wasn't just floating around in your bag, but probably like a little Ziploc. What you need out of there, you probably have already taken out. That's your marker and your pencil. You won't need your scissors yet, but you might need them a little bit later. So let's keep those nearby. The other thing in your bag that you will definitely need is this toolkit. These are some odd looking tools here. We have a knife, a fork, a spoon, all plasticware. We have 3 professional art metal foil modeling tools. Well, let's first put these to the side, our fork, our knife, and our spoon. Here are our 3 professional looking model tools. Let's talk about these. This one, as I said there, that's our pointer tool. Also our liner tool is another way you can say it. It has 2 ends. This end looks pencil-like, very pointy. That end is much straighter. Here we have a spatula looking tool. This very much look like a spatula. I can flip an egg with it. Okay, here's the straight end. Here is sort of a rounded end. Okay, that's a cool tool to use. Here, this is our modeling tool. It kind of puts me in the mindset of a spoon because look at this scoop edge. I do enjoy this tool a lot. And on this side, it has a rounded handle. And so remember, you can use both sides of these tools. It's not a one-sided thing at all. So let's put these over to the side. Also, I've been neglecting to show you all what the toothpicks do, but the toothpicks are good tools too. They do a lot of fine detail stuff. Okay, especially in the aluminum, we can take more advantage of the toothpick tool. Unfortunately, I didn't put a lot of detail on that drawing I just made, but I'm gonna see if I can still use it in my demo, seeing as I didn't use it last class, at least not to my recollection. But let's put these toothpicks back in the bag so that they don't drop and get lost. I'm gonna Ziploc that bag closed, okay? Here's what else we're gonna need in the tool bag. this little piece of paper towel, you will need this towards the end. It's to smear the marker, okay? Because the marker dries really fast, so we gotta kind of catch it. What else is in the bag are these goggles. Do you need goggles? Yes. If you're not wearing glasses, eyewear, some type of eyewear, then you will need the goggles. So I'm gonna put my goggles on now. And you're gonna see why. I'll point out why you need the goggles. If they should start fogging up, you go ahead and feel free to remove them and just take a little break, and then you can probably put them back on. Take a quick break, put them back on. But when you don't have your goggles on, be very mindful because you're going to be making some movements like this. You just don't want that to end up in your eye, okay? You're going to be applying pressure and doing like that. Okay, and it's easy because we got our head down like this, you know, all right? It's easy to make a mistake, but hopefully we're gonna be okay. What else is in our bag? I just want to show you this, even though we're not actually using today. Glue stick, and we have these glue pens. We're gonna save that for another project. And there should be a rule in your bag, ruler, okay? We're not gonna need this today either, because you see we traced our metal, so we didn't even have to make a perfect square. There are 2 magazines in your bag. I'm not going to take that out, but leave those in there because you will need them for next week. And last but not least, I don't think I mentioned the package of gloves in your bag. If you feel more comfortable wearing gloves, go ahead and put them on. I feel really great working with my hands, so I'm not going to put them on. But now we want to do our sample piece in aluminum. So let's start off with let's start off with this liner tool. It's almost like a pointer tool too. So already I'm creating lines that fast. I did a quick line. Hold the metal as you make the line. You'll see it moving. Remember, this is our sample piece. So I'm trying out different types of lines, like semi-straight lines, curved lines, wavy lines. Okay, now let's switch and use the other end of the tool and see what that does. Okay, so I pressed in real hard to make that little swoop there. If you rub in one area, you'll get a much deeper line. So do some rubbing. Like when you just make a line, then you're just making a line. But when you rub that line in, almost like you would do with a marker, you get a much deeper line. So matter of fact, all of these lines, I've just decided I want to be deeper. So I'm gonna, oh, I made a straight line too. I'm gonna go on the side of those lines and try to deepen them a little bit. All right, now this is a good time to flip your piece over to the back. And this is how you're gonna make your lines and your shapes pop even more. Now I love this. And I didn't put a lot of pressure because it's aluminum and it just doesn't need all that kind of pressure. But this is a good tool to use too. See that tool, the one with the rounded end, and it looks like a spoon on the other side, like a little scoop. That's a good tool to use to go around all those shapes that you just put in. And remember, just keep pressing in the same area and you'll get all your marks to go so much deeper. See, they didn't go that deep in the brass because it was a more challenging metal to work with. Be careful because it is possible to rub out the shapes that you just put in the lines that you just put in. So be careful. I think I just rubbed out a line. But again, this is my sample piece. So I'm less concerned about making a mistake, but just be conscious of what's happening as you're moving this tool. Okay, so let's flip that back over. Doesn't that pop out even more than before? Yes, it does. And so I can do the same thing on this side. Oh, wow, I really love this aluminum. It's just fluid. It's easy. So maybe I want that little depression to go in a little deeper, actually. We want that to go in even deeper. So I'm pressing in here some more. I'm just kind of rounding it out. All right. Oh my goodness, it's starting to look like an eye. All right, so on the sides of those lines, just like we did on the back, I'm pressing down with rye to make this pop up and stand out even more, this area here. So here we go, pressing in. Okay. Here, I'm gonna go a little deeper with this too. I even think that this additional padding helps. Wow, this might end up being a masterpiece. But I'm gonna leave an area that's unworked on the side just so I can show you the toothpick tool. So I've used two tools now. Let me go ahead and put a little bit of this toothpick tool in. Because like I said, the aluminum is so easy, it'll take to it. It's kind of like the liner tool. But let's say I wanted to put some letters in here. Just some random letters, okay? All right, I don't even really know what does that say. Anyway, this is what I mean. You can do some finer details. So, and that's what it looks like on the back. So we're constantly flipping this over side to side, really to see which side we like better. So that's what the toothpick does. Go on and put that back in there so that it doesn't get lost. And what I'm going to do with this spatula looking tool is I'm going to use that to kind of flatten my corners. I kind of don't like how these corners are just popping up like that. I want them to kind of stay still and stay down. Let me just go around and kind of flatten them. And like I say, be careful with the aluminum because all that heavy pressure you may have been putting into the brass, the aluminum is not going to require that. Hopefully. I mean, like I say, it varies per person. But in general, the aluminum is not going to require all that heavy pressure the way the brass needed it. So I did it on that side. Let's see what it looks like on this side. So it kind of popped it up a little bit, but it definitely flattened it out so it's not just sticking out. Over here, I'm even going back over my letters and kind of flattening them out too. And I'm really starting to turn this little piece of metal into what? A three-dimensional object, a relief. That's what we call it when it's flat. It has some depth, it just doesn't have that much. You see what I mean? Got a little depth up in here. So it's 3D now. Whereas before, remember this? It was flat as an ironing board on both sides. It was exactly the same. But now we got more 3D going on. So I like this special tool because it works in wide areas, but be careful because if these corners, this aluminum is very thin. This corner can pierce the aluminum if you're not careful. Like I think I made a little hole here. That's how thin the aluminum is. All right. Got that to lay down. So I've showed you those three tools. I didn't show you the fork tool. I think that in the brass, the fork tool didn't come out as much. So I'm trying to put a little texture in the fork tool. Some of your lines and shapes can be subtle. Some of your lines and shapes can be way more pronounced. And like we've been saying, you can definitely work both sides of the metal. Like that's important. Also, I don't know if I showed you today, but both sides of this fork is a tool. So the prong side is a tool and the handle side is a tool. So like, let's say I wanted to make this even deeper. Instead of that rounded edge, I could have used this handle and it would help me to deepen those lines. But remember, it's got a square tip. Can you see that? The square tip here. So, see how square it is? So we've got to have to watch out for the corners, just like with the spatula tool. Watch out for the corners, you all, because that can go straight through the metal. It's aluminum, it's very thin. So all the handles on this silverware are pretty much the same. The only thing we didn't test out with this was the side of the knife, the cutting side. It reminds me of the scoop tool. Remember I was showing you that plastic scoop tool? But the thing about the silverware is it has a slightly more sturdy handle, I think, like it's easier to hold. So when you're using the silverware, I think sometimes I feel like I have more control with the silverware than I do with the modeling tools. And that, again, that can vary per person too. That might just be my feeling. That doesn't mean that you'll have that same feeling about it. All right, last tool I didn't show you was the spoon tool. Like I said, all of them have that same handle, so we're not gonna demo this handle again because I already showed you that. I am gonna demo the rounded edge of the spoon tool, and we're gonna see what that does. It kind of does what the other tools do. But let's say I wanted to put some of the lines back in that I had in the beginning. Well, this spoon tool can help me do that. All right, so that is my finished sample. This is such a good looking sample. I might have to frame that. The sample is looking good. Okay, so we're gonna leave our tools out. I'm gonna take a goggle break, let my goggles defog. I'm putting my aluminum to the side. I'm gonna pull out the drawing that I did a few minutes ago. I wanna have the drawing in front of me, okay? So I want you to do that too. Matter of fact, I need to clean up a little bit my area because it's getting kind of messy. Plus, I want to show you a new angle of my workstation. That way you can see the drawing and my second piece of metal side by side. So remember, the drawing is a square, so it doesn't actually matter which side you turn your drawing on. Okay, so like I was saying, we have a new angle where you can see our two pieces side by side. We have the white drawing with white paper and marker, and we have the aluminum. This is going to be our actual artwork. Whereas this piece of aluminum that I was working on a few minutes ago was actually the sample piece. So that's going off to the side. It's a great sample piece. So I like it a lot. See, all right. I'll put that off to the side. Let me put that down here. That way you all can see. See, I got a little straight mark on there. So I got to try to blend that straight mark in with my design. I think it's not going to be a problem. But remember what I was saying about your drawing being a guide. It's not the finished piece, but it can be framed side by side with the finished piece. So that way the viewer can see what changes you made. How did you adopt this design and paper into metal? So anyhow, I want these to be side by side. This is where our eye and hand coordination comes into play. And I was also saying that because our design is a square, it really doesn't matter which side you put it on because your metal is a square, your drawing is a square, and it's the same on all sides. So if I'm not mistaken, I'm like, whoa, how did I do this? I'm trying to remember how I actually started this drawing. It looks like a checkerboard a little bit, so I'm going to put a line straight down the middle. Go like that. So now I got my 4 quarters here. Now this is the only tricky part, is actually remembering how you created the design in the first place. Now that we're trying to recreate the same drawing once in metal. Use your marker because it's going to show up on the metal. The pencil is not going to show up on the metal, so don't use that. So one problem I've already solved. I've solved the problem of the straight line. So this area actually gets darkened in according to my design. You'll find that your design in metal is going to be a tad bit smaller because you have this masking tape on the edge that's kind of hiding like about 1